Installing and updating Visio 2010. In this nugget, we're going to review all aspects of installing the Visio 2010 software. This is important for IT professionals, especially those of you who are interested or tasked with provisioning the software and getting it installed on your users' computers. Here we're going to look at the various product editions that Microsoft makes available to us. We'll cover system requirements, and we'll actually go through and demo the process of installing Visio 2010 under Windows 7. The second half of this nugget deals with maintaining the already existing software. Here we'll touch on things like group policy-based administration, adding and removing product features, uninstallation of the software, and keeping the software up to date using Windows Update. A lot of good IT-related skills as they relate to Visio 2010 in this nugget. Let's get to work. In this demonstration, we'll cover all aspects of installing and maintaining Visio 2010. I'm on a Windows 7 Ultimate Edition workstation computer, and on this computer, let me open up the Start menu, All Programs group. It's just basically a bare bones installation. I am running 64-bit Windows here, and besides the core operating system, I have the full Microsoft Office Professional Plus suite installed already. Now, this isn't strictly speaking a prerequisite for you as a student, but if you do have Office 2010 installed on your work machine, then that's all to the good, because quite a bit of learning Visio and really mastering it is understanding how we can integrate Visio with other members of the Office 2010 suite. Let me fire up Internet Explorer here, and let's get to work on the preliminaries. First of all, as an IT manager, if you're tasked with purchasing a license for Visio, or by contrast, if you're simply a business end user and you need to make a case to your boss in terms of making a software request, you'll learn that there's not one, not two, but actually 3 editions of Visio 2010. Now, Microsoft has historically gotten into hot water with their buying public by offering what some people, myself included, think of as too many product versions. Think of how many different variants of Windows XP there were. It was very confusing. And if you read into Visio's history before and after its acquisition by Microsoft, there have been times where we had up to 5 or more editions of Visio. There was Visio Technical, Visio Professional, and the onus was on the buyer to determine which edition was right for that particular buyer. Very confusing and very unnecessary. So we're at office.microsoft.com on a page called Which Edition of Visio 2010 is Right for You. As you can see here, the Microsoft ASP.NET URLs are pretty confusing. I'm not going to ask you to memorize that. Instead, simply do a Google or Bing search on the title of the page to get there yourself. This page is particularly important because it gives us a feature-by-feature breakdown of what's included in each version or edition of Visio 2010. Now, as you see in the first column of this table, actually it's the header row of this table, we have 3 editions. Visio Standard, that's the baseline edition that has the fewest features. Visio Professional, that's your mid-level tier. And then there's Visio Premium that gives you everything, including the kitchen sink. And we're not going to look at every single one of these features. There's quite a bit here. Basically, if I can summarize this for you, the take-home message among the 3 versions is going to be A, the number of templates, number of drawing types that are supported. This first set of features shows you your basic templates: brainstorming, organizational charts, project management, building architecture, engineering. Microsoft has included a lot of contemporary project management frameworks. You see the IT infrastructure library, or ITIL. That's a pretty hot commodity now in IT management. We have a built-in template not included in the basic standard edition of Visio, but in the professional and premium license you do get the ITIL diagram. So your first question is, do I need some of these more advanced template types to help me with my drawings? And if you think you do, then the answer is yes, you do. As we're going to learn as we go through the course, the templates give you the necessary shapes to create excellent diagrams and make it a lot easier to create diagrams that are in compliance with these different frameworks. So that may lead you, for instance, if you're an ITIL-oriented IT project manager, you may think, well, that narrows the playing field down from 3 editions of Visio to just 2. Now you notice that a few of these options, these templates I should say, are available only in the Premium Edition. If you have, for instance, a requirement that Visio be publishable and interoperable with SharePoint Server, then that's going to require the Visio Premium license right out of the gate. If you're using Six Sigma for quality assurance and product quality management, well, that's again a premium only edition. Business Process Modeling Notation, or BPMN, another case where premium is your requirement. Let's see. Another aspect that differentiates the three editions of Visio is the degree to which Visio can interoperate on your network and with other applications. You see, a lot of these features are native to all three editions. Down at the bottom, intelligent validation can fix common diagramming errors. That's a premium edition only feature. Sub-processes allows more reuse in your drawings. Again, that's a premium edition feature as well. As far as data-driven diagrams, which is one of, in my opinion, as an IT professional, one of the key selling points of Visio. These are only supported in the professional or premium. This would say, from me to you, just giving you some advice from one IT professional to another, is that if you're doing Visio for IT, or if you want to use Visio for IT, you'll want to avoid the standard edition. Basically, the standard edition is for the non-IT, just the general business user. If you're going to do dynamic diagrams where you're bringing in data from databases and making your Visio diagrams dynamically linked, you have to go to either the professional or the premium level. Likewise, if you want to publish your Visio drawings to the web browser using SharePoint Visio service, you'd have to have professional or premium. And then it goes on from there. I think you have the general idea. Another page at office.microsoft.com is called the Buy page, and this gives you the list prices for the software. Now, as you can imagine, the Visio Standard is the least expensive member because it has the fewest features. You see its suggested retail price is $249.99 USD. Professional, the mid-tier, $559. Visio Premium, that gives you everything, $999. So it's always good to see what you're going to be set back. Now, you should know that these retail prices are for single user licenses. If you're an enterprise IT shop, you won't be working with retail licensing. You'll be doing volume licensing. You see there's a link right here for volume licensing options. And you're going to get a break on the price because you're purchasing more licenses, a larger mass of licenses for your enterprise. This isn't a licensing course, but I just want to show you where these pages are such that if they're relevant to you, you can read them. Once you've determined which edition of Visio is right for you, and by the way, one more thing I'd like to say about the Visio editions is that, like the other members of the Office 2010 suite, Visio is available in both 32-bit and 64-bit versions. This is really a big deal. You want to make sure if you're running Visio on 64-bit hardware to get the 64-bit version to take advantage of the benefits of 64-bit computing. And as I'm sure you know, the two chief benefits are, number one, much faster speed and performance because you're processing more data per unit time, and also the 64-bit wide address space allows your computer to access a lot more memory than the traditional 4 gigabyte limit. Now then, as I said, after you've determined which edition and processor platform you want to make sure that your system requirements are met. Here we're at Microsoft TechNet's website. This, as you know, is the Microsoft IT Professional Knowledge Base portal, and we have an article called System Requirements for Office 2010. Now, why, you might ask, do we list all these Office Suite global system requirements, and then down at the bottom we have a separate link for Visio 2010. Something that you may or may not know is that Visio is not included, and I repeat, is not included in any of the Microsoft Office 2010 suites. I mean, as I said earlier, I have the Professional Plus package installed, which gives you pretty much everything under the sun, and there are quite a few members of the Office suite, but Visio has never been considered a core component of the Office suite. It is part of the suite, but it just isn't sold with those other applications. It's a separate stock keeping unit, or SKU as it's called. The requirements, hardware and software, for Visio 2010 are pretty low actually. The same system requirements apply to all three editions. I mean, who doesn't have a 500 megahertz processor? Who doesn't have 512 megs of RAM? Obviously, you want to take system requirements not with a grain of salt, but you want to far exceed the minimums that the vendor gives you. 2 gigabytes of disk space, that's a significant footprint for a single application. Your display resolution should be at least 1024 by 760. 68. Your Windows operating system, essentially you can go from Windows XP Service Pack 3 all the way up to Windows 7 64-bit. Note that you can also, if you want to, run Visio 2010 under Windows Server 2008. Now, I mentioned in the previous nugget that if you don't have a full license for Visio 2010, you can download a free trial from Microsoft. And what's really cool about this is that, number one, it is the premium edition where you can evaluate every single product feature in Visio. But the other thing that's cool about the trial is that it's not limited in any way. It's a free, fully functional 60-day product trial. So you have 2 months to use Visio, and it seems to me you should be able to finish my course here within the 2 months. So there's no additional monetary investment, at least on the front end. Obviously, when you complete the training, you'll want to purchase a full license for Visio 2010 so you can continue your practice. But I do want you to know that not having Visio right now is not a bar for you being able to practice and get up to speed. First, let me do one more additional thing. To make sure your system has the necessary system requirements met, a couple different things we can do. We'll want to run Windows Update to make sure that our Windows software is up to date. In Windows 7, I'm a big fan of this search box here, and we can launch anything really just by typing out the word. Windows UPD gives us a link to Windows Update. We're going to actually run that once we install Visio, so I'm not going to go there right now. Another thing we'll want to do, I'll go to the Run box here and type msinfo32. That opens up the System Information utility. Now, if you don't have the Run box on your Start menu, we can right-click the taskbar and select Properties, navigate to the Start Menu tab in the Taskbar and Start Menu Properties dialog box, click Customize, and then make sure that the Run command option is enabled. I'm a big fan of the command line, and I'm going to integrate command line shortcuts as we go through the training. System Information, if you haven't used it, you probably have, will give you everything you wanted to know and more about your system. All right, now I've downloaded the product trial of Visio. Here it is. You see the shield on the installer icon. What that means is that user account control requires that we have elevated privileges in order to install the software. That's just part of the built-in security in Windows 7. I'm going to double left click the installer. I am logged on this machine as a local administrator, so I'll just be prompted for consent rather than prompted for credentials. There's my UAC consent prompt. I will click yes to acknowledge that. Visio will extract files from that exe, and away we go. Visio 2010 uses the Windows installer technology that Microsoft has created and standardized on, so we have rich and robust options not only for installation but also for product maintenance and uninstallation. The very first thing we're required to do is to provide our product key. Before you download your demo software, you do request and receive a valid trial product key. This is a 25-character alphanumeric string. I'm going to paste mine in. Obviously, I'm not going to share it with you, but you'll note that it says, please wait while your key is validated. In other words, your key is computed offline. You don't have to have an internet connection for that step, but it's computed and determined to be either a valid or invalid key immediately. And if the key checks out properly, you'll see a link down at the bottom to attempt to automatically activate your product once you're online. Well, I'm going to deselect that. Actually, I'm going to select it because I do want to activate my product. It's a trial version. Activation, as I'm sure you know, is a method of protecting intellectual property and ensuring that customers have only legitimately licensed and actually, honest to goodness, purchased products installed on their system. Let's click Continue. We have to read and accept the software licensing terms, single user license, and then we're asked what kind of installation we want. Typically, you can determine whether somebody's a real IT professional or not on whether they choose just the default Install Now option or if they go to Customize. I am a true IT geek, so I'm always going to go to Customize so we can determine exactly what and where this software is installed. Now, the way that Windows Installer works it is we have a tree view of all available components, and we can select those, open up the tree, and turn off stuff we don't want installed by opening the drop-down and selecting Not Available. That'll turn it off. The first icon and second icon determine whether that feature and any sub-features will be installed or not. There's a third state called Installed on First Use, where the feature is not installed, but the option still exists in the Visio user interface, and when you click the appropriate button, then the component is installed automatically. Well, you see, we have everything installed by default. Every single thing has the hard disk icon, and I'm just going to leave that alone. That's perfectly okay. If we go to File Location, we have our default installation path, and it gives you your disk footprint, how much space is required, etc. This default path is going to be either C Program Files Microsoft Office if you're installing on a 64-bit edition, or C Program Files x86 if you're on a 32-bit machine, or by contrast if you're installing the 32-bit version of the software. User information should be familiar for anyone who's installed Microsoft programs. This is just going to populate metadata fields that can be useful to not only tell Microsoft itself who's using the software, but in particular Microsoft Office programs. So when you're doing revision tracking and commenting and that kind of stuff, the metadata is pulled from here. I'm going to get rid of initials and just put in Nugget Lab for my organization. We'll click Install now, and that's really all there is to it. We can just hurry up and wait while the software is laid down. Once the installation completes, we see this page where we can connect to Office Online by using this button, or, as we'll do, click Close to close the installer. We can verify that the application is there by opening up our Start menu, navigating to our Microsoft Office program group, and sure enough, we have an entry for Microsoft Visio 2010. We'll fire it up, of course, just to make sure that it is working. Yep, here we are. So now let me close out and we'll move on to the next phase of the demo, and that's maintaining the software. First question is, what if we during initial installation had not done a complete installation, but instead we picked and chose which components we wanted installed, and ones that we didn't want to install, we didn't select Install on First Use, but we actually did not install them all together, and now we need them. How can we maintain our software? I'm glad you've asked. In Windows 7, we have the Programs and Features control panel. You open the search box and just start typing Programs and Features. You'll see it show up right at the top of the list. And in Programs and Features, we can click to select the appropriate application, and you note we have two options. We can uninstall this program. That's what we do if we wanted to remove the software. Of course, we don't want to do that. Change will tap into the installation routine. You'll need to mount the DVD or have access to where the original source files were installed from. And the Change dialog asks us, do we want to add or remove features? Do we want to repair the software? This can be useful if we feel that a file corruption event has occurred and kind of semi-trashed our software. This will make sure all of the program files in Visio are good, and any that are not good will be replaced. We can use Remove to perform an uninstallation, or we can enter a product key. This would be useful if, for instance, we were running a trial version and we wanted to convert it to a full version because we now have a full version key. I'm going to choose Add or Remove Features and then click Continue. We're simply brought back to this Windows installer tree where we can make modifications, click Continue, and it's as simple as that. So that's really, in a quick way, how you can maintain the software on a computer-by-computer basis using the Programs and Features control panel. Now, another thing we can do is keep the software up to date using Windows Update. Again, we'll fire up that control panel. What's especially cool is that Windows Update can be configured to get updates for not just Windows itself, but also other products. Let's click Find Out More here where it says Get Updates for other Microsoft products. And what this does is it replaces the Windows Update engine with a broader update engine called Microsoft Update. And the reason for that product name change, of course, is because we'll be checking not only for Windows security fixes, service packs, so forth, but also updates for our Microsoft Office software as well. I'm going to choose Recommended Settings. We'll click Install to make that change on our system. And now we see that our Windows Update control panel in Windows 7 says that we're receiving updates for Windows and other products from Microsoft Update. Now, as a systems administrator, especially if you're an Active Directory administrator, you know that you can manage all aspects of software installation and maintenance by using group policy. Of course, it's way beyond the scope of this course to do anything on group policy. Many of my CBT Nuggets colleagues, including my friend James Conrad, have done deep dives on that subject subject in the CBT Nuggets library. So for further information on office maintenance with group policy, just consult the CBT Nuggets catalog. I've taught on that subject myself as well. All right, I have not run Windows Update on this system, so we have quite a few available, 250 megabytes worth. Let's click the link to see what exactly should be installed. Now you notice that Windows 7 categorizes your product updates, especially now that we're using Microsoft Update. We have a whole bunch of Windows 7 updates, but for our purposes, we're concerned with these ones here for Office 2010. Let's see if there are any that are specific to Visio. Yep, sure enough, it looks like this guy right here, Knowledge Base 2553008, deals with addressing a security vulnerability in Visio 2010 specifically. We have security updates for the entire Office suite as well as for other specific tools. Definitely want to test these in an enterprise environment because it happens very infrequently, but you might find that a Microsoft product update breaks one or more line of business apps on your system. So again, that whole subject is for another time. But those are the basic mechanics of keeping your software up to date. The very final point in this demo, before we get to Visio 2010 use proper, I know that you're probably champing at the bit for that, is the issue, how do I fully uninstall the software? The Programs and Features control panel that we were at earlier is pretty darn good as far as allowing you to remove applications, but you know as well as I do, if you have appreciable industry experience, that Windows applications, even first-party ones by Microsoft, will sometimes leave behind a lot of detritus or junk. You may want to be assured that you've installed every last trace of, say, Visio 2010 once you've determined you no longer need it on a system, or for instance, if you want to transfer your license from one system to another. You should do a Google or Bing search for Office Removal Tool 2010 because Microsoft themselves has a utility called Fix-It. In this Microsoft support article entitled, actually the ID is 29301 if you want to look it up by article ID. It's how do I uninstall the Office suite if I cannot uninstall it from Control Panel. The subtext here that I would add is how can I make sure I'm fully uninstalling the software? It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Why would this article even be necessary if Control Panel fully uninstalled the software? But at any rate, down towards the bottom you have a download link to a Microsoft tool called Fix-It. And there's a Fix-It version depending upon whether you're Office 2003, 2007, or Office 2010. And that wizard will allow you to completely uninstall the software if you need to do that. There's a third-party tool that I love called Revo Uninstaller. The free version works really well actually, and that will do an excellent job of scraping through the registry and file system of your machine if you're in a situation where you want to remove all traces of Visio. Well, there you have it. Installing and updating Visio 2010 review. At this point, you have a really thorough understanding of not only what Visio is, but what's required to install and maintain the software under current versions of the Windows operating system. At this point, we've covered all of the necessary product background information and infrastructure requirements. From the next nugget through the remainder of the course, we'll be spending all of our time specifically within Visio, and I know that's what you've been waiting for, so let's continue on our journey and continue having fun. I hope that this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.